The Marketer's Mindset, Episode 24, with Brian Burkard. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Marketer's Mindset, the podcast where we talk about how to create and sustain a powerful mindset to help you build a successful online business and lead a happy and abundant life. I am super excited about my guest today. My guest is an amazing and inspiring individual who is a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, and a social media entrepreneur. But the most inspiring thing about this guy is what he's done in such a short period of time. I seriously believe this guy's legal middle name is Action. In just spring 2015, he was still working a 9-to-5 job. Feeling stuck and hating his life as an employee, finally refusing to settle for a life of mediocrity, my guest summoned the courage that most people desperately want, and he suddenly quit his day job even before he knew what he was going to do next, and decided to pursue his dream of working for himself. Taking some advice from a mentor and actually acting on it, that's the key, guys. And to push himself as a new entrepreneur, my guest decides to do one of the toughest and most challenging things, something that most people wouldn't even attempt to do. He decides to go into door-to-door sales. Let's fast forward to today. Now he owns Cobb's Media, a social media management agency designed to help small businesses and entrepreneurs to stand out on social media. He's been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine, Social Media Examiner, The Huffington Post, and was even named one of the top 30 entrepreneurs under the age of 30 by Influensive.com. After being in more debt than he had ever been in his life and taking action to pursue his entrepreneurial dream, my guest had the honor of being just featured on the Dave Ramsey Show for becoming debt-free for the first time in his entire adult life. This man exemplifies the phrase, where there's a will, there's a way. And if these accomplishments weren't enough, he recently ran in a 50-mile ultra-marathon just to challenge himself. He also just barely released his first book, which debuted on the Amazon Top 100 of all books in the success category. His book is called Fish Out of Water, the guide to achieving breakthrough and permanently transforming into the new you. And just 2 days ago, on Christmas Day, this guy announced that he was selected as one of the expert speakers at the upcoming Epic Mastermind Experience this January in San Diego, California. To make him even more amazing, he is passionate, he's genuine, he's humble, a true giver, and a nice guy. And he calls himself just a regular dude. Please welcome Calvin Wayman. Calvin, how are you, bud?
Brian, man, that was the best intro I've ever heard in my entire life, for real. Thank you so much for that.
You deserve it, bud. That is all true, man.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Going through and researching you for this podcast here, and it was just, I was looking back in the Facebook IM. It was like just 11 days that I reached out to you. I saw your all-in-one video clip from, I think it was Nick Unsworth event.
Yep,
right?
The Life on Fire event on the phone. Yep.
And I watched it, and I was like, wow, it was just, I'm serious, but I'm not trying to hype this up. It was so inspiring. You were so genuine. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, you were just vulnerable. You told about your challenges and what you faced and about the fear, and I was like...
It was real.
Yes, and it came across that way, and I was like, I got to connect with this guy. So I reached out and just wanted to tell you how much, it meant to me and that it really moved me. And you responded right away with and this is what I like too. Nobody's ever sent me an IM voice message, Yeah. And I'm like, this guy sets himself apart. I mean, that's awesome. But you reached out and you said, hey, I heard you got a podcast. What can I do to help you? And then right away you sent me a link. We scheduled it, and here we are 11 days later doing this podcast.
Yep.
I mean,
totally
it's awesome. But some of the things I found that we have in common here, bud. One, we did door-to-door sales.
You did too? Heck
yes, I did
brother.
in
bones to
aluminum
that.
siding in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh my gosh. That is
So-
so funny.
Kudos to you, man. It's a tough gig, man, going out there knocking on doors and trying to make sales. So I relate to that. I also worked in a call center.
Ah, beautiful.
Yes. And I actually had one of the jobs was, I'm trying to think of his name now. There was a guy back, you're too young though. So he was back like in the 80s, and he was a info marketer. And
yeah.
it'll come to me.
Is he a main type of guy? Because
Yeah,
being
the
in the
tiny
call
little
center space,
classifieds.
yeah. If you say the name, I'll probably know it too. Because being in the infomercial type space for 5 years or 6 years, whatever it was, I did a little bit of digging and research and kind of saw how it had trended. So if you say the name, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, it'll come to me later. But I learned a lot about testing. That guy would test scripts like crazy.
Oh, yes.
He would call us in, and 5 of us say, okay, you guys do this 2 script, you do this. And by lunch, there was a whole nother script read. So I learned a lot in that call center. The other thing is we both had the privilege of meeting Sean Stevenson.
Heck yes.
I met him. Yeah, I met him through Joe Polish out here at Joe Polish had a little event at his Piranha marketing office out here in Tempe.
Love that.
Yeah, it was so cool. The other thing was, you said the last year in your college, you had never read a book, maybe 1 or 2
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah. Like, especially personal growth and development books. I read my first book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, in my last year in college.
That is so
crazy.
cool. Because I was like me, I would go through and I would skim and do like quick book reports just by skipping chapters. So I never, but now I got tons of books. Even I got some out in the garage because I have so many of them. So I just love doing the personal development. So it was interesting going through and seeing that we had some of the same ideas here and some of the same background. So
that is super cool. Yeah, you never know. That's so interesting. And so here we are 11 days into this. We barely met, but we have so much in common and a connection. That's just totally awesome. I love that.
Yes, definitely. All right, bud. Well, let's just start out here. And for people that don't know you, can you kind of give a background, start out briefly with growing up and kind of where you are today and that journey you took?
Well, again, I think it's so important to know early on. You touched on it a little bit in the bio, but I just think it's important to know right off the bat, after hearing all that crazy stuff that seems like it's happened in just the last 20 months or so, I literally am a regular human being. And I think that's important to know because when I was getting started, and by getting started I mean as an employee looking at people that I admired, people that were living the life that I wanted to live, I admired them, but there was this space between them and myself. Like I think I would put them on a pedestal or put them on like this guru on a mountaintop, and was like, I didn't know if I really believed that I could become that. And what I've learned in the last 20 months as I jumped into quitting my day job and stuff like that is these gurus or these people that I looked up to are human beings. And I would see them mess up or see them have anxiety or see them like have self-doubt. These are my idols. And call it a weird twisted way, but that gave me confidence because I was like, holy cow, they're just like me. And so that's the thing I just want to set the tone of whatever we talk about is 20 months ago I was literally still an employee at the job I wasn't very excited about. And that should be super exciting for anyone because I'm just a regular person. And if this regular person can start taking steps after the dream and stuff comes through it, then you can too. There is none of that separation. We're equal. So that kind of sets the tone with that. And yeah, just telling my short story. I mean, like I mentioned, about 20 months ago, I just took the plunge and said, you know what, I'm gonna quit. I ended up going to do door-to-door sales to challenge myself, and then I ended up starting my own business on the side while I was doing door-to-door. And then just this year, wrote my first book and got out of the door-to-door after about a year and a half, and just now working on my own business, getting into speaking, and giving value through the power of the internet. That's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. And I want people to really take away from what you said there. that's something that is so powerful is you've gone out and you've met these people and you said, hey, these people are just like me. They're ordinary.
Yes.
They're doing extraordinary things, but they're nothing. I don't know if you want to say, there's nothing super special.
I love the word that you just said, because you said they do extraordinary things, and this might sound corny, but it's so true. The thing that makes you extraordinary, I found, what makes them extraordinary is they just do extra of the ordinary. And that's what makes them extraordinary, right? And that's what it's about. Sticking to something, do extra of the ordinary. They're ordinary people. Like, I'm not tearing them down. I'm not even being self-deprecating, but I'm an ordinary person. And I think it's important to know that, because if somebody wants to go after something, they need to know that there's no difference and they can literally do it. Like, that's just a fact. I'm not being positive thinking. I'm not like jumping. I'm not being like this idealist. That's just the truth.
No, it is so true. And that's what I want the audience to take away, that point is so powerful. And sometimes people skip over it and say, yeah, he's an ordinary guy and stuff like that. But you really got to believe that, because otherwise you're going to hold yourself back and you're not going to take action. But when you can see someone say, you know what? I'm like Calvin, just kind of like what we touched on, a few of the commonalities that we have in our background. We've gone through some of the same experiences here, and you're putting yourself out there. And now in 20 months, you've created some fantastic results for yourself, but you're so humble and just say, hey, I'm just a guy that's putting myself out there and finally just doing it instead of talking about it like I have in the past, because that's what I've done.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I was the idea guy. That's what people knew me for 20 months ago and previous. Like, I was the idea guy. And interesting, it was just super interesting. It was like a year and a half ago, my new friend started calling me the action taker, and I was like, holy shit, that's weird. I would have never been thought I would be called that. But yeah, it just made that switch, and yeah, it's been different, and it's been cool, it's been crazy, it's been scary, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
That's awesome, bud. Now, how important do you think your mindset has been to your success?
Oh my gosh. All of it. It has to be. Like, if not all, it has to be really, really, really close.
Yeah, and that's what one of my beliefs is. It's 90 to 95%, I think. You know, the other stuff is the stuff you can learn, the steps that you need to take or whatever. But the mindset, if you don't have that, you're not going to be taking action on that.
Totally.
So, now growing up, Calvin, who would you say was most influential in your life?
Man, growing up, it would have to be my dad. He was a hard worker. He was an employee most of his life. So didn't have a ton of entrepreneurial influence, but later on in life, he actually ended up getting laid off from his safe, secure job, and he ended up starting his own company. So that was cool.
That's neat. Okay.
But yeah, like later on, like late teens and stuff, I guess the people that really inspired me were people like Steve Jobs, and just Elon Musk, people that I was just noticing making a difference. And then of course a little bit later on, probably in my early 20s, Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yes. Gary, man, I love that guy. I love listening to his stuff.
100%.
Talk about someone who's just genuine and raw and just tells it like it is.
Yeah, Gary gets it, and he's probably had the most influence on my decision-making and my behavior in my whole life, not just on my online life, but my whole life, of any entrepreneur and any mentor that I've looked up to since I've jumped in.
Great. And you've had the privilege to meet him in person, correct?
Yeah, a couple times. And if you like him on his videos and if you like him online, then you'll love him even more in person, because what you see is what you freaking get. Like, there is no gloss, no acting. Like, he's just totally real, genuine. Down to the very last F word, F-bomb from stage, he's real.
Exactly. He likes to throw those around.
Yeah.
Now, developing the mindset that you have, I know you said it's so important to your success and stuff. What was it? Did you learn or develop this mainly through books, seminars, mentors? How did you start to develop this mindset to take action and put yourself out there and really start going for it?
So a couple things. The first thing I think that helped me the most, and it kind of sounds counterintuitive, because people think they have their goals and they need to get the mindset totally right before they can start taking action. But where I've had the best results on my mindset is when I've scared the crap out of myself and took the action first. And that started to develop some things. And there's something interesting that I think is important to know about mindset. Mindset isn't always solid and positive, right? How I think of mindset is it's strong enough to get you to take action even when you're afraid. Mindset doesn't mean you're going to have total confidence. Mindset doesn't mean you're going to have 100% confidence, but it doesn't mean you're going to be fearless, but it's going to give you courage, right? That's what mindset is to me. So I'm going to take this action I've never done. I'm going to do this thing that feels scary and I don't know what's going to happen, but I put myself in that position to do it anyway. Now, the one caveat to how this all developed that isn't really taking action but really helped is we've mentioned earlier that I read my first book really my last year in college, just 6-7 years ago. And what happened then is I had a mentor that I was talking to one day who was a college professor. He was an adjunct professor. He was an actual business owner, not just somebody that taught it. And I said, what is something that I can do? What's the one thing that will have the biggest change over everything, over my mindset, over the actions I take, and most importantly at that time, over my ability to sell, because I just got into sales, or to communicate with other people, because if I want to be a business owner, if I want to make impact, I need to be able to communicate. What's one thing I could do? And that professor said, read a book a week. And I was like, what? A book a what? A book a month? He's like, read a book a week. And I was like, holy cow. I hadn't ever read more than 2 or 3 books in a year, let alone a book a week. And as I was complaining, he then interjected and said, well, to be honest, a book a day would be better.
Oh, wow.
But if a book a day doesn't sound too crazy, then a book a week would be good. And I was like, okay, I'm going to give that a shot. And he said, I'll even give you a head start. I'll give you my top favorite 15 books.
That's great.
My personal book list of what I would have you read. And I was like, I would love that. So this guy went out of his way, and he gave me his book list, about 15, maybe 20 books of the very best books. And that got me started. I didn't know where to start. And that's what really got me into the personal growth and development books, is having that list. And then once you see one book will recommend another book, or because you understand a book, you'll get in a conversation with somebody, you'll talk about this book, and they'll say, hey, if you like that book, you've got to check this one out. And so that first year, I didn't do one a week, but I went through about 20 books that first year.
Yeah.
But then the second year, I did 55. And then the third year, 55. And then the sixth year, 55. And I've done that for the most part, with the actual other caveat of this year has been all about action. So it hasn't been as much. So the books started to really frame my mind of what was possible. And then what really got me to prime my mind, I guess, to take the leap from quitting my day job wasn't a book. It wasn't positive thinking. And in a lot of ways, I would feel like that my mind was unstable. But I think it's important to know this, because so many people, I think when you're getting started, you think it has to feel totally perfect, so it has the right time, so you feel confident. But it was actually a bigger fear than the other fears I had, like of what if I fail, or what if I don't have enough money for my wife and my 1-year-old son, and things like that, and we end up living on the street. So my mind was not very positive then when I was contemplating quitting. And what made it more solid to actually quit was, ironically, a bigger fear. I had projected like I mentioned on that interview that you saw, I projected myself 10 years into the future. And I asked myself, what if I wake up 10 years in the future and nothing has changed? And I had this little dialogue with my 10-year-older self, and he basically said, in 10 years, as you and I get older, we're going to have more responsibility, not less. Your 1-year-old's probably going to be your 1-year-old will now be 11. You'll probably have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a newborn. It'll be harder to make changes, not easier. So if you're ever going to make a change, do it now. And then couple that with, this is the big fear that really got me. I projected myself 10 years in the future, and I thought, what if I wake up 10 years in the future, and this fire I have to want to have freedom, to create something bigger in life, to make it an imprint on the world, what if this fire I have inside of me to make a difference died? What if it died because I didn't act on it? And I think that's an important question for anybody listening to this to ask themselves. That's what gave me the resilience, I guess, in my mind to, even though I was afraid, again, wasn't totally confident, even though I had the fear, asking that question is what gave me the mindset strong enough to say, you know what? I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I can. I don't know what's going to happen. But I'm cutting the cord on this corporate job, and I quit. So I hope that gives kind of a process. I wanted to kind of really give the detail of where I was at and what made me just jump in and develop the mindset to say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go after it.
No, I love it, Calvin. I mean, it's what you said was so important, and it's funny because I did an interview last episode with a friend of mine who's a realtor here in the Valley.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and he talked about his journey going, 4 years ago, how he started out with, it was him, and he had been doing real estate for a few years. Uh-huh. Him and a couple of people assisting, someone making some calls and helping with closing and so forth. And then he had a mentor. He put up his vision board and stuff, and he wrote down a goal. I'm going to make $100,000. Never made it in his life before. Didn't even finish high school. And he said, you know what? The next year, I only made $70,000. And he said, but I kept that goal there. And he said, and then in the next 4 years, I made over $1 million. And he said, one of the things that you just said, Bud, is that he looked at the fear of not being able to provide for his family, to live paycheck to paycheck. And I pray and hope that people listening to this, I mean, these are the nuggets that I like to emphasize when I hear them because it's so important. It's so easy to gloss over and go to the next question for you. But Calvin, what you said was so important about being real, about not having that perfect mindset of ready, everything's prepared. I'm 100% confident. Now I'm taking action. No, you're taking in spite of it. But so many people have fear hold them back. You took fear as a power to push you towards your goals and not hold you back. I think that is so powerful, and people need to realize that
it's such a cool hack, right? Like it's almost like it feels like cheating. So I didn't get rid of my fear. People might talk about that. How do you get rid of fear? How do you avoid fear? You're gonna freaking have fear. Let me tell you right now, 20 months into this with all this stuff, I still have it big time. And that is so important to know so that when you step into it and you feel fearful, what would be worse than you having the fear would be thinking, oh my gosh, I must be doing something wrong. Or I must not be ready, or I'm going to turn around because these other people I look to don't look like they have fear. No, that's normal. You're going to have it, but take the action anyway. That's really where you're going to win.
Yes. And that's so powerful. So people, you need to listen to this. When we're done with this podcast, you need to replay this over and take the first nugget that we talked about at the beginning about being a regular person and Calvin taking action, that he's no different than you. And I'm sure there's going to be more nuggets in this episode, but definitely listen to what he just said about fear and use fear as a motivator. Don't let it hold you back, because we're all going to fear. People that are successful when they're doing something different are still going to face fear. They're not out there fearless. They are just pushing through their fear and going towards their goals and looking at what they want down the line, and not that regret out there of not doing it is more powerful and worrisome than the little fear you're going to take, to put yourself out there. So I think that's so powerful. Now, kind of what you touched on there too, Calvin, is, and I always laugh about this. I talk with one of my buddies. We constantly talk about mindset and different things. And And one of the things is, sometimes you wake up and you're powerful. You're like, man, you're on fire. You're ready to take the world on. For you, you wrote the book and, maybe you got the speaking engagements. You're feeling good. You go to bed, you wake up the next day, and then sometimes you're like,
it's gone.
Yeah. And it's like, what's different? I'm the same person that I went to bed with. I didn't grow any more or lose anything overnight, but how do you deal with that? What I like to call the monkey brain that will throw up that negative chatter and negative self-talk. How do you deal with that, overcome with it, and put yourself into action other than, having that big fear picture that you look at? What other maybe hacks or techniques do you use?
Practice. I'll be totally vulnerable and transparent here. I just barely went through that. This month, I just came off of my first live event, did my first ever live event in my entire life. It was a big goal. And you would think that coming off of it, I would be so high, like on such a high. And the event was awesome. The guests that were there were great. The audience was awesome. I had a ton of fun. It was a lot not scary. It was way less intimidating than I thought. I had done a 2-day event. I did the talking the entire time with the exception of the MC, Michael O'Neill, I had there. And it wasn't nearly as scary. So you would think that I would come off and be like, I am just ready to just keep hanging on fire. I just did one of the biggest goals ever. But interestingly enough, I woke up 2 or 3 days after it and totally unmotivated and like, man, like how do I get up? I don't feel like doing anything. It's the holidays. It's you start attacking yourself. Well, it could have been better. I could have done this better. I could have increased conversions on sales if I did this. Man, I lose a client or somebody doesn't buy, and I'm like, man, maybe am I losing things? Like, what do I need to do to work harder? So I get that part. And again, the only thing I can think of is when you are high, when you do have the action, first of all, take advantage of it because you're going to have the roller coaster, and when you feel yourself going up, attack it, take advantage, and get the momentum moving. Right. When you're down, again, the quote that I like to say that one of my friends also says is, my goals affect my actions, not my feelings. My goals affect my actions, not my feelings.
I like
so that, and again, it's not going to look pretty at first, but you have to just act because you said it, because you declared it. Something that I declared 2 years ago is I said, I'm going to exercise every single day. And this is coming from a guy who I used to be 20, 30 pounds overweight from what I am now, and I would set a New Year's resolution, do it for 2 weeks, and fall off. But I developed the practice after trying it a few times that I have, with Sunday as my day off, I have exercised every single day for 2 years.
That's fantastic.
Whether I feel like it or not. Some days I don't feel like it.
Right.
But here's the thing, by the way, how, since I'm using exercise here, where do you build muscle? You build muscle when you get to your limit and you push through it, right?
Right. Like they say, it's not the last 10th rep, it's the 11th, 12th rep where you build that muscle.
Yes. So change your perspective when you have a low. Because this is crazy. You know how, like when you're high, go after it. But when you feel low, holy shit, if you can get yourself to act, to do something when you don't feel like it, just imagine how that's going to affect the next 10 days. Like, I learned this when I was working out, especially when I was getting to day 39 or 40 and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I've been doing it for so long. And I get a day where I didn't feel like it. I'm like, I feel so bad. I'm sick today. I don't feel like exercising. But man, if I can get myself to do it today anyway on my low day, imagine how much easier it's going to be later. And that one day is not just one day. Because I pushed through that one day, it positively affected the next 60. And if I would have not persevered, it would have put me a step back. But because I persevered that one day, it was like domino that pushed over so many other dominoes. So that's how I think about it now, is just doing it anyway. And there's a few little things I've done that have developed that. Certainly the door-to-door did it. Because I'll be totally honest and transparent there. I did not love door-to-door. I did not do it because I was passionate with it. Right.
You'd be crazy to love that.
Yeah, I didn't love it, but I did it every single day, whether I loved it or not. After somebody slammed the door in my face, I went to the other door anyway. So that trained myself that if I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So the monkey brain goes quiet. Something that I just did yesterday. If you follow me on Snapchat, I did a snap about it actually. But something I do as the first shower of at the beginning of every week. By the way, I love hot showers. Shower are my favorite things. I get relaxed. Like, I love showering. But at the beginning of the week, the first shower that I do, no matter what, is an ice cold shower.
Really?
And I hate it. I hate it, especially right now. It's snowing outside. It was 19 degrees. And yesterday I still got in an ice cold shower. Here's why. I want to always remember and never forget that the best growth happens in that little bit of uncomfort. If you can tell yourself that I'm going to do this whether I feel like it or not, then it will change everything. You'll have more days where you do feel like it. Right? You know it's the right thing to do, but you don't feel like it. Like, people talk about doing what you love and doing it if it feels right. That's true, but you need to keep that in context of long-term perspective. It never means short-term. Right. You don't ever, it's never the right decision to only eat cake because you feel like eating cake, right? You would die. So in the long term, what feels right is being healthy. So that means in your small moments, when you feel like not working out, you say, well, I really want to have a better body, so I'm going to work out anyway, whether I feel like it. So there's another quote. I can't remember where I got it, but the mindset that you have to have there is you're sacrificing with what you want most. Right. Right? So I want the cake, but I want a body better. I want a healthier body instead. Yes, I want to not get rejected on my door-to-door, but I want freedom more. Yes, I don't want to do that other cold call, but I want to develop the skill to be able to push through any walls more, right? So that's kind of the mindset that's helped me, I guess, develop to take the action even when you don't feel like it, because you'll have them.
Oh, definitely. And some of the things that you touched on there is, one, even if you're doing what you love, there's parts of it that you don't love, Right. Especially if you're wearing all the hats and you're starting out and you've got to do all the things. You've got to do the social media. You've got to do all your marketing. You have to edit your podcast. You have to get the guests. You have to, there's going to be parts that you don't like, but using that and pushing towards looking for that long-term goal, like you said, that's what's going to keep you driving. That's where you get that pull. I always like to say you're getting pulled towards your goals now, not using that stick. You got that carrot out there that, hey, this is where I want to get. I'm looking long term. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. Yes. And to get there, if I keep looking for that, I'm going to be drawn to that. Yes. And another thing, a couple other things that I got out of this, Calvin, that I really love is you talked about things. You didn't say the word, but everything you were saying was talking about making a decision. I could eat that cake every day, but doing that decision is not going to get me to being a healthy individual. So instead of deciding to eat that cake, I'm going to go ahead and do this other decision that's going to be more productive and better for me. And people need to realize that when it comes down to it, you do have a decision. You need to stop running off autopilot. Yes. And start saying, you know what? Take a step back, take a deep breath and say, hey, I can go this way or I can go that way. What is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? And what's going to get me there? Going this direction is not. So I decide not to do that. I'm going to go ahead and go this way. And then the other thing that I got out of it was a lot of – I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, it's huge. I mean, I think that's what that we come down to is I probably would have hated hearing this 2 years ago, but – success is actually quite simple. It's not that we don't know what the steps are, right? but we just don't decide to, because I know, like, I'm not where I need to be fitness-wise because I've let myself go over the holidays. And it's because I've decided to have one or too many alcoholic beverages, or I've decided to have too many carbs and stuff like that, right? And that was a decision I made. Like, we know how to be healthy. Eat good food and move your body.
Right.
But it's deciding to do that. And I think that's like a big portion of it. And that's why mindset's so important, to make yourself decide it and do it anyway.
Yes. And I also love too what you talked about is you were talking about consistent action. You're not talking about, oh, you know what I did? I decided I'm going to exercise, and you did 10 days of exercise, and then the next 2 months you didn't do anything. No, every day you did it, exception with your Sunday that you take off. And that's huge. It's the consistent actions. And one thing that I kind of found out, and tell me if you've experienced this or you kind of have the same belief, but whenever someone wants to start something, I read a book called, I think it was Small Habits, and I don't know if there's an extra to the title. I'll link it up in the show notes, but it was very powerful. And he talked about just setting a small habit. Like, for example, if you want to exercise, I'm going to do, and put it to the ridiculous, I'm going to do 2 push-ups a day, every day.
Dude,
whether I'm sick.
I am so glad you touched on this, because
is that powerful or what?
It's like I want to make this so stupid easy. And like when I started working out, again, like, that sounds crazy, 2 hours working out. Let me tell you what my actual goal was when I started. Because again, you need to realize that willpower is it's a limited resource. You can only go so far. So you do not want to say, I'm going to do something insane, like I'm going to go to – I love CrossFit, and that's going to tell – but if you haven't been to CrossFit, do not set a goal right now that you're going to go to CrossFit for the next 6 months every day.
Right.
Don't do that. This is what my goal literally was. First of all, I had an in-home DVD workout program, okay?
Okay.
So something that I could do without having to travel – so taking away, because that's the key. That's what I learned, is consistency is it. Like, if you can consistently work out, then you can talk about increasing the reps. You can talk about doing it better. You can talk about getting stronger. But if you don't have the consistency, all of that doesn't matter. It's almost like you can't increase your basketball shot percentage if you don't take the shot. You got to get consistent in shooting, and then you could talk about increasing it, right? So this was my goal that I tracked. I had to push play. Did you hear that?
Yes, I love it.
I had to push play, and I mean that. I had to push play on the DVD, and I had to be there for the 30 minutes to an hour, whatever the workout was. I did not have to work out hard. I did not have to sweat. I had to push freaking play. I could push play if I was watching a movie. I sit in front of a movie all the time. Now, I just knew that was my first little domino. I did not sit throughout the whole thing and just watch it, but I knew that was it, that was the one little thing, that it was so simple. And if I pushed play, I got to put a big red X on that calendar day, because that's what my goal was to work out every single day, whether it was doing 2 push-ups or 200, whatever it was. I had to just do it. And I'll be honest, some days sucked. Right. Because I was still working my day job, and I would get home at like 8 o'clock at night, and I was doing a workout program, and I didn't push play till after midnight. And
really?
Again, I still considered that the same day. It was the day I was up, and I still had to go push play. I know many people listening to this have binge watched stuff after midnight, and they've been able to push play on the next Netflix. And so literally, because it was so simple. Now, if I would have thought I'm going to go work out for 2 hours at CrossFit after midnight, there's no way I could have got my mindset right to do it. But I was there like, you know what? I just got to push play. That's all I got to do. And I pushed play after midnight and stood there and was there during the workout for 30 minutes to an hour. But let me tell you what that did. Not only did it keep the momentum going, but the next day and the day after that, when it was like 8 a.m. and I was going to push play, it made those workouts so much easier. But you can keep it that small. The consistency matters more than anything. 1 push-up is better than 0. So if you can just push play and do something super simple like that, break it down to that thing and get it consistent, then you can talk about increasing, measuring it, and improving it. So totally love that you brought that up. 2 push-ups better than 0. Do something super simple. Push play.
I love it. And that's so true. And I'm sure some of the times when you didn't feel like working out, as soon as you push play and maybe 5 minutes into it, you may have got into it and maybe it ended up being a fantastic workout.
But
it didn't start that way. But you
Right.
took that initial simple step of pushing play.
Yep. I call it the simple trigger. What's the trigger? Speaking of little habits. By the way, I actually got this from another habit book called The Power of Habit. That's what helped me develop this.
Yes. I've read it.
What's the simple trigger that gets it going? And you're right. I made it easy on myself, so I did not need to have a lot of willpower or even mental willpower thinking that I had to go kick ass. I just had to do that one simple thing. And yeah, some workouts weren't perfect, but they were a lot better than nothing. But there were many times where I didn't feel like it, and I didn't think I was going to work out hard, but I started moving my body, and in minute 2 or 3, I'm like, you know what? Let's just freaking crush this. And then ended up being a sweaty, just total sweat bag at the end.
Yep, and it's a consistent thing that you keep doing that's getting you those results.
Yes.
So that's awesome. Now, besides working out and stuff, Calvin, what do you have any other must-dos that you must do every day?
Yes.
That you won't compromise? What's that?
Yes. And again, I'm not perfect, but I try to keep them as consistent as possible almost every day. Like, if there is one thing that, like what we just talked about, if there's one thing that has been like my key factor, it's developing this consistency, this idea of it. Because one thing that I've done pretty consistent is I've journaled in my journal every single day since I was about 17 years old.
Oh,
so for the last 12 years. Now, it's funny, I haven't talked about this, and it's probably because I haven't talked about it right after the trigger thing, but I just realized I did the same thing without realizing it when it came to my journal. I wanted to do something simple. I hated writing with my hand, and I wanted it to be able to be something that could be done super quickly if I wanted to write a lot, and also something that would be easily tracked. So my journal has not been written by hand. It's been by my laptop. And It doesn't have to be a big journal entry. It just has to be something. So at the end of every day, I journal something. Some days I have 3 pages. Other days I have 3 words. Right? And so I've done that, and I try to keep that pretty consistent. Another thing I did that I picked up during my door-to-door stuff about a year and a half ago came out of necessity, and that is meditation.
Yes, I've heard so many people talk about the power of meditation.
Yes, and I had to do it. Like, some people just get into it because they want to try it out. Like, when I quit my day job, it felt great the day I did because I was like, this feels right, I'm on the right path. But the next day, you talk about a low, everything was like, holy shit, now what am I going to do?
Reality.
And then I ended up moving a couple states over into a completely, like, away from my family, everything I knew, just my wife and my 1-year-old with me to do door-to-door. That was scary. And then going from being a manager at a call center, dealing with people every single day, having agents and people that actually like you, like every single day seeing you, to then being in a neighborhood and you hear this. Nothing. Dead silence. And the only people that see you are people that don't necessarily want to see you. And so there was a lot of battling going on in my mind. Anxiety, depression, holy shit, can I do this? And thoughts like that. So I went to meditation as a way to get clear on my mindset and to get solid there. And I'll be honest with the meditation as well. Like, when I first got into it, I hated it. It made it worse because, and looking at it now, I was like, well, why did it make it worse? It made it worse because I was used to, when I ever got feelings I didn't like, I would want to push them away or ignore them. But meditation made me sit down, notice where I was feeling, doing guided meditations, and then put attention there, and it actually bubbled it up. So it actually amplified it and made the anxiety or depression worse at first. But because I was consistent and I decided to do it every single day, no matter what, and go through the program. What I learned was you have to focus on the energy or the feeling, whether it's good or bad, and then let it process and let it pass, right? So now, feeling sad or depressed that could have lasted for 3 weeks now can last 3 days or 3 hours or 3 minutes through the power of meditation. So that's another thing that I think is something that I do every single day or really close to it. I just came off of a 90-day, 30-minute challenge where I've meditated every single day for 90 days in a row, 30 minutes for 90 days in a row. And now I'm going to probably go down to like 10 minutes a day. That's what I've done historically, just to keep it super simple.
Right.
But yeah, that's been huge with my daily mindset and a must do.
And I love that, because I think one of the things that you talk about that's so powerful is, it's so easy for us to say we're going to do this or we're going to do that, but you take it as kind of like you're telling them either a mentor or a friend. You take that commitment seriously that,
Yes.
You know what, I'm going to do this. And it's kept you consistent in to deal with the fear, like you said, that comes in when you got to face those feelings, and now you got to sit there alone, have those feelings bubble up, and you got to deal with them there. There's no pushing them away or hiding them, because then you're not doing the meditation. And
Right.
I got to commend you on, you just decide, bud, and you take action, and, you push through the uncomfortable times.
Yes.
The things that are fearful, and you just keep going. I hope people just listen to what you're saying, because this is stuff that can be done. And one of the things you mentioned, and I love to talk about too, is making things simple. I don't want to have 67 or 1,001 ways to do something. Give me 5 simple steps that are powerful, that if I follow those on a consistent basis, I'm going to see results in my life.
Right.
Now, because it's simple does not mean it's easy to do.
Right.
And we've talked about that. You've mentioned it, definitely. But when you keep it simple and you don't have 1,001 things to think about, you got these 5 simple steps, you make a decision and you push through that uncomfortableness, you're going to get results.
Yes. And I think something that helps with that is there was a mindset hack that actually was given to me. It was such a gift last year by my coach, Nick Unsworth, whose event I was now on stage. And I talked about it it was a quote that I said right at the very end of that interview. And it's what keeps it simple for me. And it's this: done is better than perfect.
Yes,
right?
I've heard you say that.
Done is better than perfect. It keeps things so simple. Like, this is what you're going to do, but in our own mind, we think we have to do it just right and complicate it and make all of these other steps so that it's done right. No, simple's better. Focus on completion. If you focus on completion rather than perfection, you'll keep on progressing rather than freezing. So just keep it simple. Done is better than perfect.
Yes, I agree with you. And I've been guilty of that. I get in that perfectionist mode. I want it to be great because I want to give value. I want to do something right. But
yeah, we're our own worst critic. We want it to be just right.
Right. Totally. But if you try your best and you put something out there, it's going to be better than just not doing it, you know? Yep. You can get the feedback and change it and correct it or add to it later. I heard a story about that. Someone was talking to somebody who was like a CEO of a big electronics company, and they were talking about, what makes you successful? And he says, well, what makes us successful is that when company A is on version 1 of their product, we're on version 12. Because we've put it out there and we keep getting feedback from the market. Yep. We change it, we adapt it, we improve it. They're working on version 1 to get it perfect, to send it out there. And if you're not asking or getting that feedback, you're putting out what you think is perfect or what you think they need, which may not be right, but you're spending all that time doing it. So I love how you are just doing it, putting it out there, and you're just resonating with people because you're just so genuine, so real. And I love how you share and open up and share your vulnerability. I mean, it's so powerful now. I mean,
well, to be fair too, is it looks like it's being bold, but to me, it's just it's a hack. Yes, you want to learn something, but what I've learned by taking action is you literally learn faster by doing it and then waiting on the safe side. Like, and it's because of one simple concept. Like if you want to learn how to play basketball, you could be on the sideline and study all the rules, and it's not going to help you learn how to take a shot, right? Or here's a better example that I think people resonate with. It's Christmas time. Something that I do a lot during around this time is spend time with friends and family, and we play board games. Okay?
Nice.
I don't know if anybody's awesome. So I don't know if you've ever played Monopoly or these other board games that have a lot of rules, but have you ever sat down to play a new board game that you've never played before and have somebody try to explain the rules to you for the first time?
Yes.
Right? It's so confusing sometimes, especially like if you're trying to learn how to play Monopoly. Like, what do people say once? Like after you read the rules, like what do you say? Let's just
play a practice round here, so you see what it's like.
Yes, and how much better does it feel after you've played around? You totally understand what the person is saying now. It makes sense. Exactly. You're in it. You learn way faster when you're playing it. And here's why. There's this simple thing that it's just impossible to have when you're not in the game. And that is context. We learn by context. Like why what's going on, why what's happening. We learn by, like you mentioned, feedback. Like the context of this is what a customer wants and said, and adjusting. And now the rules make sense because of context. The only way that you can possibly gain context in life is by playing life, by being in the game, by taking the shot. If somebody tried to explain to you how to flick your wrist differently, and you have never shot a basketball, you're not going to get it. If somebody's trying to explain a certain scenario in Monopoly and the type of action you should take if that scenario ever happens, you're not going to get it unless you're like faced with it. And once you're there, then you can adjust. Then you can strategize. Then you can take the next step. So that's something that I think is so huge. It's not just being brave. It's not just being like, I'm going to just do this anyway. I'm just trying to be bold. You literally, it ends up being easier in the end because you're learning way faster. You can be on step 12 while everybody else is on step 1. So.
Definitely. No, that's super powerful right there. Definitely. All right, Kevin, listen, I want to be respectful of your time here, so let's start closing up.
We've gotten fired up on this. I like it.
Oh, I could talk to you all day on this. I love it, bud. This has been great. I'm going to definitely, offer you to come back sometime later. I'd love to chat more on this if you get a chance.
Absolutely. Would love it.
What's the best way for us to connect with you, whether social media, emails, whatever?
You know what? You just reminded me. I actually have a gift for your audience, if I may.
Yes, definitely.
Cool. So the best way to get a hold of me, so my main business you mentioned is Cobb's Media. It's social media management. So what we do is we help growing entrepreneurs and small businesses stand out on social media past 97% of everybody else. So you actually mentioned like the voice memo and stuff like that and how it just made me stand out. Like that's a simple thing that I teach all of my clients. So that's what we do is we help people stand out. Because if you can't help people if you're not standing out. Something that Grant Cardone says, I call Grant Cardone my Uncle G, is if people's businesses aren't growing, it's not that you have a bad business model. And it's usually not that you're a bad person. It's because of one thing, obscurity, meaning there's not enough people that know who you are. That's the problem. So what we're passionate about is helping people stand out so they can become known. So what I'm doing is I'm giving away something that we call a social media makeover. This is totally free. It's a $300 value. You can get it by going to socialmediamakeover.org. And what's cool about this is not just a PDF. This is not just a page. This is going to be an actual live phone call with myself personally or somebody on my team. We're going to help you stand out better on social media so that you can just take whatever you're trying to do, your brand or your business, and take it to the next level. So again, I'm huge on connection. That's why we do it as a call and not a PDF. So you can get that, set it up by going to socialmediamakeover.org. And we'd love to see what we can do to help you stand out. And besides that, you can stay connected with me by going to calvinwayman.com or whatever social media platform that you love best, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, you can find me there by searching Calvin Wayman.
Buddy, that's huge. I appreciate that gift. That is awesome. Like I said, the audience here is all marketers, so most of it's going to be online, and they're definitely going to need to learn about social media because that's the way to go. And I've heard you talk about on some other podcasts I listen to, it's that personal connection.
Yes.
People go in it with an attitude as a way to market, but you definitely need to connect with people first. And it sounds like your company shows people, and it's going to definitely set everyone apart and put them in the top 3%.
That's what we want to do.
That's awesome. That is so good. Okay, one last question here for you, bud.
Hit me.
What is the best piece of advice or message that you want to give to the Marketer's Mindset family?
I have 3 that are going in my head. I want to see which one I'd want to stick with.
Hey, I share 3. I'm sure they're going to be awesome.
Okay, 2 of them are what we talked about, and I want to emphasize them. First one is to be extraordinary, do extra of the ordinary. That's how anybody that you've seen that you look to, that's why they're where they are. There's nothing magical. There's no sacred wand. Become extraordinary by doing extra of the ordinary. And the last thing I talked about that we just touched on for a little bit is realize that done is better than perfect. And the thing side to that is to make it memorable. I'll tell you what one of my mentors taught me. And he's like, if you really want to be successful, you need to fuck more. I was like, what did you say? It's like, you need to fuck more. I was like, what does that mean? He's like, fuck stands for focus on completion. So that's tied to the done is better than perfect. Focus on completion, yes, not perfection. If you do that, then you're going to make progress. Progress requires action. Progress requires forward motion. Action, any action, is better than inaction. Okay? So have that forward motion. And then the last thing that I think puts us all together is this. Successful people, we've talked about decisions, right?
Right.
And part of when we know that we need to make a decision, the thing that still holds us back is we worry if we're going to make the right one. And we worry that after we go down one path, if we'll be able to turn around, and what if we make the wrong one? What if we don't do the right thing? And this is what I've learned. Successful people don't worry if they made the right decision or not. Instead, they make a decision and then they make it right. Okay? So make a decision, then make it right. It's not the point of decision that makes it good or bad. We get it backwards. I got it backwards forever. And when I learned that you can just decide and then take action, and it's what you do after the decision is made, that's where the magic happens, then a ton of things open up. So if you focus on completion by taking action and know that you don't need to make the right decision, any decision is better than indecision, and any action is better than inaction. You couple that together with doing extra of the ordinary, let me just tell you, you listen to this, I'm speaking directly to you, you will be freaking unstoppable. And I mean it.
There you go, guys. Listen to this. I want you to go back, re-listen to this podcast over and over. Something that I like to do when I hear good stories and valuable messages is I go back and I listen to them again, because I obviously missed something the first time. And the more I hear it over and over, the more it resonates, the more it becomes ingrained in you. But Calvin has shared such great knowledge here with you. And guys, this guy's out here doing it. He's just not up there speaking and giving presentations on this stuff. He's out in the trenches. He has a social media company. He's working on these things daily, and he's shared what he's doing to propel himself and to become successful, and why he's created this huge mass of just awesomeness in 24 months or so, Calvin?
It's been about 20 months since I quit my day job. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. So guys, reach out. I encourage you to research him. There's some great videos and podcasts that he's done with other individuals. I encourage you to listen to him. Take advantage of his social media makeover. It's truly, I mean, guys, that's such value. Please take advantage of it, I'll go ahead and link that up into the show notes for you guys.
Socialmediamakeover.org.
Yes, and we'll have that in the show notes. And then lastly, I'm about a quarter of the way done with Fish Out of Water. I love it so far. And guys, what we talked about here, Calvin talks about in his book too. I encourage you highly to get it. Go to Amazon.com. You can get it there and go through it because it's the same thing. He breaks things down simply. He talks about how he's taking action and what you need to do to be successful. So, Calvin, I appreciate you, bud. This has been awesome. Thanks for your time.
Hasn't been this fired up on an interview for a long time, so thanks for pulling it out.
Oh, definitely. All right, take care, bud.
All right, see ya.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really and truly appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to learn more about developing a strong, successful mindset, then go ahead and subscribe by clicking the I'm In button below this podcast. Each week I try to deliver great content that you can learn and apply immediately to help develop a better mindset so you can build a great online business and hopefully a better life. So if you like what we're trying to do here at the Marketer's Mindset, then help us spread the message and give us a rating and review on iTunes so we can help more online marketers. Lastly, I want to hear from you. So if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss or an online marketer that you would like us to interview, then send me an email to brian@themarketersmindset.com. Thanks again. I love you guys. And until next week, take care and I wish you a brilliant life.